Does anyone truly understand ADHD? What if it's not what you imagined, and you could actually change how you deal with it? Welcome back to Shift's Perspective, the show where we rethink how we understand the mind, challenging what most people think they know, and looking at how it actually shows up in everyday life. Today, we're talking ADHD, and in this episode, we turn our focus to the senses. A part of ADHD that's often misunderstood, but deeply important. I'm MR.MINDSHIFT, but just like everyone else, you can call me Shift. Back with me are Cassandra, diagnosed at 30, and Joe, father to a 20-year-old son with ADHD. Let's explore how and why the senses are so necessary to pay attention to. Most people know about the 5 basic senses: taste, smell, hearing, sight, and touch. And many are also aware of balance and the muscle joint sense, the one that helps us coordinate movement and stay upright. But there's one more, the interoceptive sense. It helps us notice what's going on inside our body, like hunger, fullness, or the need to pee. It also tells us how we feel: nervous, calm, angry, or excited. We're all born with a sensory system, and our senses are the very first way we meet the world. They shape what we experience and how we react, physically, emotionally, and socially. Sensory input is more than just impressions. It's the foundation for our thoughts, behavior, and how we learn. And when that foundation works differently, as it does for people with ADHD, everything else is affected too. Attention, memory, emotional regulation, even how we understand the world around us. That's why the senses matter, especially when we're talking about ADHD. People with ADHD often process sensory input differently. Some are easily overwhelmed. Others hardly notice what's going on in or around them. Sounds, movement, smells can all pull attention away in an instant. And to stay focused, many seek out intense stimulation without even realizing it. This constant effort drains energy, which is why so many feel exhausted after school or work. Cassandra, you mentioned pushing yourself too hard at work. This might actually explain why.
That makes so much sense. I never thought about it as sensory overload, but now that you say it, I realize how much noise, light, and chaos at work used to drain me. I always blamed myself for not coping. Like, why couldn't I just handle it like everyone else? And now, even small things at home, a crying kid or the dishwasher running, can feel like too much. It's like my system never gets to rest.
Thank you for sharing that, Cassandra. What you describe is so common, and yet so often overlooked. Like with all people, the senses react to stress and pressure. But for those with ADHD, that reaction comes much faster, and it lasts much longer. Even after the stressful situation is over, the nervous system can stay on high alert. Joe, have you noticed if your son reacts strongly to sensory input? Things like noise, touch, or crowded places.
Honestly, I never really thought about it in terms of senses. But now that you say it, there were signs. Even as a little kid, he didn't like being hugged. He'd flinch or pull away. And back then, we just thought he was shy. Later, he started hiding out in his room more and more. Noise, change, even smells, it could all set him off. I always saw it as him avoiding life. But maybe it was his way of coping with too much input.
That's really important, Joe. A lot of children with ADHD react strongly to touch, not because they're cold or distant, but because their nervous system is more sensitive. What feels neutral to most can feel intense or even threatening to them. And over time, they learn to withdraw to protect themselves. It's not avoidance, it's regulation. The body does what it can to keep things from becoming too much. And for your son, closing the door might have been his way of staying in balance. So how do we actually work with the senses? It starts by understanding how they affect you personally, because no two people experience them the same way. Some senses hit harder than others, in both good and difficult ways. The goal isn't to avoid all stimulation. Sensory input can lift your mood and help your nervous system stay more resilient over time. But if you're feeling overloaded, it's just as important to protect yourself. If you look at the screen behind me, you'll see ways to either increase or reduce sensory input. depending on what you need. Support your senses by adding input. Movement like walks in nature, time with animals or people you trust, and heavy work like lifting or pushing can help calm your system. It reconnects body and mind before shifting to quieter input, like massage or a weighted blanket. To reduce overload, limit strong light, sound, smell, and texture, using headphones, soft clothes, sunglasses, or dimmable lighting. Recharge before and unwind after intense sensory activities. It's not about avoiding life. It's about making it livable and sustainable. What it really comes down to is finding what gives us energy, support, and relief. For many, that might be listening to music, fidgeting with something like a tangle, or creating small zones of protection, especially in public spaces or at school or work. And just as important, give yourself time to rest before and after activities, whether it's something you enjoy or something you do out of duty. For someone with ADHD, it's never just an activity. It's a flood of sensory input. Cassandra, I'm actually a bit curious. Do you ever struggle to notice physical sensations, like hunger, fullness, thirst, or the need to use the bathroom? And what about emotions? Do you sometimes find it hard to recognize what you're feeling?
That's actually something to think about. I rarely feel hunger or thirst clearly. For years, I've eaten more by the clock, especially around my kids' routines. If I'm focused on something and lose track of time, I just forget to eat. Same with drinking water. I've started carrying a bottle with me. Otherwise, I completely forget. And with emotions, I think I tend to go all in. When I feel something, it's really intense, and I often struggle to pull myself out of it again.
Thank you for sharing that, Cassandra. What you describe relates to the interoceptive sense. When this sense is less responsive, it's easy to miss what the body is trying to tell us until we've gone too far. Building awareness around this can really help, especially in learning to catch emotional reactions earlier. And it's great to hear you're already taking steps, like keeping water nearby. That's a strong strategy. As Cassandra shared her experiences, I started seeing just how much sensory input shapes daily life. That's why it's so important to reflect on what affects you, both in helpful and challenging ways. Another question for Cassandra could have been, do you have a sense that feels especially strong? One that helps you focus deeply? Questions like these can reveal patterns in your own sensory system, your strengths and your struggles. If you'd like to explore this for yourself, check out the link in the video description, where you'll also find tools and guidance. What if understanding ADHD wasn't about labels, but about unlocking potential? In our next episode, we're diving into giftedness, how it shapes experience, masks challenges, and why it often goes unnoticed in people with ADHD. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to explore this on a more personal level, you can join the free Shifts Perspective Forum. The link is below. And for those of you who want to go deeper, you'll also find worksheets, tools, and extra content in the description. Hope to see you again.